Dogworks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dog Works. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com. You can support this podcast on patreon.com/firstpawmedia.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by First Paw Coffee Company, specializing in private label premium blend coffee. If you're serious about coffee, you should check it out. First Paw Coffee's passion is high-quality, small-batch roasted coffee. They take the extra time to taste and get everything perfect before they release new blends. They aim to bring you a cup of happiness each time you pour yourself some coffee. Find out more at ak.dog/free and enter for a chance to win some First Paw Coffee prizes, a book from our collection, and tote bag. One winner will be selected at random each month. That's ak.dog/free.
There are many reasons why you want your dog trained. You want a dog that you can take on a walk and not have him pull you down the street. You might do a lot of entertaining in your home, and you don't want your dog to jump up and steal your guest's turkey leg at Thanksgiving. You might like to visit farmers markets on the weekends, and you want your canine buddy to tag along. Well, we have compiled a list of 5 golden rules to help make training with your dog better and easier, while avoiding some of the most common mistakes that owners make. Let's dive in.
From First Paw Media, sponsored by Alaska Dog Works Professional Canine Training Center in Anchorage, Alaska. This is Dogworks Radio, committed to families and their dogs to build lifelong and fulfilling relationships. Visit our website at dogworksradio.com. Now here are your hosts, Robert and Michele Forto.
Hello and welcome to Dogworks Radio. I'm Michele Forto. I'm the lead trainer of Alaska Dog Works, where we help owners and their dogs have better relationships. On today's podcast, we are talking about the top 5 golden rules of dog training. Let's get started. Golden rule number 5, resist repeating yourself. I can't tell you guys how many times I have witnessed someone calling a dog's name over and over again, getting louder with each repetition, while the dog seemingly ignores everything around it or is intently focused on something else. This process breeds frustration for the humans, who are often amazed when I call their dog's name and receive a response on my first try. Repeating a cue is probably the single biggest error that trainers see when teaching owners new or experienced how to work with their dogs. As humans, when we make a request of someone and it is honored, it is in our nature to repeat ourselves to ensure we were heard. Unfortunately, this is counterproductive to our cause in dog training. Dogs learn by association, and our job is to help them associate certain words or gestures with behaviors. Remembering this, let's go back to our original scenario. An owner, let's call him James, calls his dog, let's call her Bella, 5 times in an attempt to gain her attention. Bella, 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 Bella. What are the possible outcomes here? If Bella turns to look at James after hearing her name 5 times, she will either get rewarded for responding, punished for not responding sooner, or ignored by James. And the 4th one, Bella never acknowledges James. In outcome 1, Bella learns that the correct thing to do when she hears her name is to wait for it to be called 4 more times, because that is when the reward comes. In outcome 2, she learns that responding to her name results in punishment, something we will try to avoid in the future, making her even less likely to respond to her name. In outcome number 3, she learns that her name is irrelevant, as it did not produce anything meaningful. In other words, her name is white noise. Rewarding outcome number 4 provides no benefit to James, and as outcome 2 shows us, punishing Bella for noncompliance will only teach her to avoid punishment in the future. That means outcome 4 yields the same learning result for Bella as outcome 3. Her name is irrelevant white noise. Trainers know that we have to set dogs up for success in order to increase the rate of learning. Rewarding good behavior has been scientifically proven to do this, while fostering a human canine bond built upon mutual trust and respect rather than the desire to avoid fear, pain, or punishment. It is for this reason that I never ask a dog to perform a behavior that I think is unlikely to occur, which leads me to golden rule number 4: facilitate predictable outcomes. In other words, play the odds. Skilled trainers understand the importance of setting dogs up for success and never ask for a behavior that isn't likely to happen. It is important to remember that training is rooted in science, and like all science, it is a process that relies upon trial and error to clue us into solutions for the problem at hand. When I watch an owner call their dog's name repeatedly, I am looking very carefully at all aspects of the dog's environment to clue me in to why the dog may not be responding. Is this a new location for the dog? Are there distractions present? Is the dog staring intently at something? Is it busy sniffing the ground? Are its ears twitching to indicate a distant sound that the owner and I cannot hear? What about the owner? Is their tone of voice scaring the dog? Are they gesturing in a confusing or potentially scary manner? When it's my turn to see if I can get a response, I consider all of these small details and wait until I think the dog is likely to comply with my request. Only then will I attempt calling the dog's name. Oftentimes, this simply means waiting a few seconds until the dog has had a chance to process what is currently holding its attention. Play the odds and take your best guess to increase the likelihood for success. If you still don't get desirable results, remember the old Thomas Edison adage: I have not failed, I merely found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. In our example above, James should have simply cut his losses and stopped calling Bella's name after she failed to respond. Chances are she was simply focused on something else in her environment, and she would have been willing to respond to James had he waited just a few seconds longer. Golden rule number 3: pay the sticker price. Every behavior has a price tag. At its core, dog training hinges on behavioral economics, or the price we pay dogs to perform certain actions. For simple behaviors like sit, praise is often a sufficient paycheck for dogs, but more difficult behaviors like stay often require a bigger incentive than a simple good job. As humans, we are constantly negotiating life's social constructs. For example, if I am moving to a new house and would like to borrow my friend's truck, I need to make it worth his while. It's also important to remember that while a slice of pizza would be sufficient thanks in this situation for me, a friend who doesn't like Italian food would probably prefer something else. The same is true for dogs. Every behavior has a price, but the price for a single behavior may vary from dog to dog. Let me give you an example. A good friend of mine has 2 rescue dogs with polar opposite dispositions. Sunny, her basset hound, is a social butterfly. Trying to get him to walk away from the opportunity to play with another person or dog can be a monumental task. When they are at the dog park, a piece of kibble has less value to him than the opportunity to play with another dog. But a super high value treat like Play-Doh salmon strips, those will do the trick. Now, Frankie is a rehabilitative reactive dog. He can be very timid around new things, specifically people and other dogs. While we may never know for certain, we suspect he may have been abused or used in fighting circles before he was adopted. Now, unlike Sonny, Frankie could not care less about playing with other dogs. So, when they call him away from one, verbal praise is sufficient. This is not to say that Frankie does not enjoy playing. Quite the contrary. He just prefers to play alone. I am certain that given the choice, Frankie would sell his soul for an opportunity to chase a tennis ball. That is about the highest value reward you can offer him. Well, that and a burrito someone dropped on the street. So, when you know you have a difficult training task ahead of you, use this to your advantage. If Frankie complies with the request, he gets to play fetch. The more difficult the request, the higher the paycheck. It's behavioral economics, and dogs generally have very little wiggle room on their sticker price. Remember, the learner decides what is rewarding, not the teacher. Golden rule number 2: no place for punishment. We just learned in training that the dog determines the value of a reward, not us. The converse of this is also true. The learner, the dog, determines what is punishing as well. While we may find yelling to be run-of-the-mill behavior as humans, a dog may find it to be aversive. This is why we can never overlook the potential consequences of our actions as teachers. Let's listen to an example. Bella is a very strong puller, and James is having a difficult time walking her. He decides to buy a prong collar to teach her to walk with a loose leash. While James may see immediate relief from Bella's leash pulling when using a prong collar, the problem with this aversive tool is with what James cannot see. Prong collars function by causing discomfort when there is tension on the leash to teach a dog to avoid feeling pain. In fact, when the same force is applied to both a prong collar and a flat collar, dogs experience 155 times more pressure from prongs on a very delicate area of their body. The addition of something unpleasant to stop a behavior from occurring is known in training as positive punishment. Because dogs learn by association, anything present in the dog's environment while it is feeling pain can take on a negative association. Other dogs, children, strangers, bicycles, you name it. When this happens, the dog's desire to avoid the pain around its neck can be transferred to a desire to avoid the things in its environment. This can lead to aggression toward those things as the dog attempts to prevent them from causing it pain. Research has shown time and time again that rewarding good behavior is leaps and bounds more humane and effective than punishing bad behavior. It is because of this that positive reinforcement is the preferred training method for modern, cruelty-free trainers. Reward-based training has been scientifically proven to increase the rate of learning, encourages dogs to work harder for rewards, eliminates the need for forceful or aversive training tools, and fosters a human-canine bond built upon mutual trust and respect, rather than one on a dog's desire to avoid fear, pain, or punishment. In addition to avoiding the use of positive punishment in training, it is also incumbent of us to remember that training must be done at the dog's pace. If we push our four-legged friends too hard, too fast, in a training scenario, we can inadvertently cause them to develop traumatic emotional responses. As we learned with prong collars, when this happens, aggression often follows. Consider this example. Because Lucy does not know how to swim, she has developed a fear of being in deep, open water. An ethical swim instructor would not teach Lucy how to swim by pushing her into the deep end of the pool before she has first built her confidence in shallow waters. The same concept applies to dog training as well. If your dog is afraid of bicycles, asking it to sit calmly as several of them zip by from a few feet away is a recipe for disaster. Instead, you need to work up to this kind of exposure in incremental steps. If you fail to recognize and honor your dog's fear, it is likely to react aggressively in order to preempt that fear from happening the next time it sees a bicycle headed its way. Golden rule number 1: let the dog choose. Here is a great quote. The power to control one's own outcomes is essential to behavioral health, and the degree to which a behavior reduction procedure preserves learner control is essential to developing a standard of humane, effective practice. Renowned psychologist Dr. Susan Friedman. It is crucial to remember that all behavior is conditional. This means to teach or modify any behavior, we need to change the conditions that allow it to occur. This may be the most important piece of advice a trainer can offer, which is somewhat ironic because this is probably the most difficult golden rule for owners to follow. In training, dogs are the learners and we are the teachers. In other words, humans control the learning conditions. This means the onus to teach or modify a behavior doesn't belong to the dog. Rather, it is our responsibility to change the conditions that allow it to exist. Let's say James comes home and finds Bella on the couch where she is not allowed. After cueing Bella to get down to no avail, James resorts to pushing Bella off the couch. While the way James solved this problem may appear innocent on the surface, he is venturing down a potentially dangerous path. As descendants of wild animals, dogs have a natural instinct to protect valuable commodities such as food, toys, and locations like sleeping areas. In dog training, this is referred to as resource guarding. For a wild animal, the loss of valuable resources can lead to death. By pushing Bella off the couch, not only is James removing her ability to choose where to sleep, he is leaving the underlying emotional reason for sleeping on the couch unaddressed. That spot on the couch did not lose its value simply because James pushed Bella off. And if she values that resource enough, she may preemptively growl or even bite James before his next attempt to remove her. So what could James have done differently in this situation? How could he have taught Bella to choose to leave the couch? Empowering dogs to make choices in their environment allows them to feel control over it, which in turn breeds comfort, confidence, and calm behavior. James solved this problem by showing Bella what she did wrong, but in order to preserve her choice and control as a learner, he would have been better served to show her what the correct thing is to do instead of sleeping on the couch. In order to do this, James needs to remember golden rule number 3, pay the sticker price. The reward for getting off the couch must be greater than the reward of being on it in the first place. The next time Bella is caught on the couch, James should lure her off with a high-value toy or treat and to an appropriate sleeping location. This way, Bella finds the alternative more rewarding than being on the couch, and with some repetition, she will choose to stay off it in the future. So what do you think? Are these rules that you can train your dog by? Let us know in the comments section of this podcast or on our social channels. Just search DogWorks Radio. And one last thing. Did you know the best thing you can do for our show is to let your friends know all about it? Ask them to check it out too. Please do that for me. All right? I'm Michele Forto for DogWorks Radio. See you next time.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by First Paw Coffee Company. Learn more at firstpaw.coffee.
From First Paw Media, this is DogWorks Radio. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you'll see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Robert and Michele Forto. Our producer is Robert Forto and created for First Paw Media. Did you know that Alaska Dog Works trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michele Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska Dog Works on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.